Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Tuesday. We would normally shoot on a Monday, but man over there, he was gallivanting in Dubai, National Dubai Day or whatever the nonsense that was
Hey,
happening
hey,
there.
hey,
So
hey, steady, steady.
you've had a nice long weekend. So how's it been? How was National Dubai Day or whatever it's called?
National Day celebrations. I mean, it's a big deal over here in the sense of it's a public holiday, so there's a lot of different events and festivities. So yeah, yesterday we went to Dubai Festival City, bit of a show, and some nice fireworks to light up the evening, quite literally. But very nice, very nice. And yeah, it's super nice just to get a couple of extra days off. And just kind of go out and about. And again, it's a nice vibe because obviously everyone's also off. So it's not so packed out. It's just pleasant. Everyone minding their own business just allows you to catch your breath a little bit, to be honest. But yeah, lovely, lovely 3, 4 days. Back to work tomorrow, unfortunately, though. So yeah, there you go.
Well, it's a truncated week, so you've only got 3 days. So at least it's not a daunting prospect. I had you've obviously not asked, but I'm going to talk about Leeds because I went to Ewood Park. My God, I still haven't recovered. It was awful. It was probably the worst I've ever seen Leeds play. Everything I've ever said about Fark came to fruition because he was hopeless, useless. And I said to a friend of mine who was there with me, I said, look, this guy will not make any changes until minute 70. And on cue, minute 70, that's when he made his changes. We were flat. Blackburn Rovers were up for it. They had much more energy. They were stronger. This is what I can't believe that if you want to get promoted, we should be chomping at the bit. We should be wanting to sort of, we obviously, win would have meant we would have gone to first place again. That's enough incentive. But when you've got a manager like Fark, who's useless, I could have done a better job. Absolutely. In fact, so many other people would have been doing a better job because after about 15, 20 minutes, it was crying out for a change. This man wasn't going to change anything. How on earth he can't motivate the players because they looked as if they were completely flat. So I was swearing my head off. I don't think anybody paid attention because they must have been thinking, hang on, this guy's always swearing when Leeds do something wrong and he's in the Blackburn end. But nobody seemed to pick up on that. So very, very disappointed. I've still not recovered. But it is what it is. It is
I,
what it is. This
I,
is go on.
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I think that's a few wins on the bounce for Rovers now. I think 3-3. I could
Yeah.
be wrong. Obviously, you mentioned in the last recording that you would be there. So when I did follow the game and saw that you were losing 1-0 to a penalty, I was thinking this better recover quickly, otherwise Ayoub's going to be irate. My only contention, as I will often say to you, is you never mention the manager when the going's good. You never ever
No,
mention.
I
No,
do.
no,
I
you do
do.
not. You do
I
not. It's
do.
always me. It's always me It's always me prompting you at the end of your little piece when I say, "Yeah, Daniel Farke, a great manager and all the rest of it." You never mention him during your good runs and all. It's always been prompted by me. Yet when you lose, he doesn't half catch your eye. Like you don't mention anybody else but the manager. Look, you're in third place. I think you've still got, I think, the best goal difference in the league. I'll have to double check that.
Yeah,
You're
we have, yeah.
3 points adrift. So let's see. It's still a long way to go. I think you're probably due a negative result. You probably got a little fortunate. I was in the Swansea game, last minute winner. So let's see. Let's see. I mean, look, you're going to win games, you're going to lose games. I think you're still well placed, well positioned. Let's see how the next few games pan out.
All right, we'll sort of see how it goes. And I'm going to actually look back on some of the videos that we've made to see actually if I've been prompted to criticize Fart when we've won, because I'm absolutely sure that even when we've won, I've let rip on the imposter, on the fraud.
You just don't
Right.
give him any flowers when the going's good. That's what I don't get. Like, as it just give him praise when the going's good at least. But anyway,
He don't deserve any praise. He is, and I've said it, and I've said it on Twitter many, many times. I think he's probably the worst coach in English football. He really is. If you were there watching that game, it was unbelievable that it was crying out for changes. If not in the first half, certainly at the start of the second half. But he made none. And I said to Shax, who was there, I said, look, he will not make any changes until minute 70. And absolutely on cue. That's when he made his changes. And they were too late. We could have played another 90 minutes and not scored a goal. Completely flat. Blackburn Rovers worthy winners. and it pained me, but they were deserved winners. Right, enough of depressing myself about Leeds. We talk about game at the weekend. The game of the weekend, it was Liverpool Man City. Unbelievable, outstanding. I thought Liverpool were magnificent. Yeah, Man City are just not at it at this moment in time, but Liverpool were. I think they would have beaten anybody on that day. They're just so good. I'm calling it now. The league's theirs. You might as well just give it to them. Stop the league. What's your thoughts? Uh, and again, we've talked about Guardiola the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it just is. I, if I was a City fan, I'd be looking for a glimmer of hope somewhere, but I don't think there's any there at all. I think he's gone mad. I think he's losing it. All of this stuff, it's not a good sign. It's a guy who's under tremendous pressure. So, what's your thought on the game? Do you think that I do you think that City are just imploding? Do you think there's a possibility they'll finish outside the top four?
Yeah, look, just firstly on the game itself, it was the game of the season in terms of the way it was being built. Yeah, of course, you had Arsenal City at the Etihad earlier this season, but this felt important. I mentioned how this was one of, if not the biggest game in Pep Guardiola's reign at Man City, for the reasons of not necessarily what they could achieve. Again, they've played bigger games, won our finals and all the rest of it. But in terms of perhaps what a defeat would symbolize, and I think that's exactly what materialized there afterwards. Liverpool were well worthy of their win. I think the story we have to give them their flowers. They were incredible in terms of the football that they played. The first 20 minutes, Ayub, was about as good a football in terms of just you felt, oh, a goal's coming any second, whether it was a set piece, whether it was open play, they were cutting them open. City were absolutely nowhere in that first 20 minutes. You felt they had to ride that out. You thought they probably wouldn't, and they didn't in the end with the Gakpo goal. But Liverpool was so good, balanced their play up, high pressing, then taking it a little bit easy. What was amazing to watch about Liverpool is they seemed perfectly in control when dominating the ball and suffocating the City team and keeping and springing attacks in behind. Trent Alexander-Arnold was playing some balls on Sunday that were I don't think anybody else could in terms of the
Mhm.
way he was arcing that ball over Nathan Ake and Akanji as well for the first goal. But also when off the ball, they seemed still pretty much in control and looked the likelier team to score, which is an amazing kind of string to your bow to look just as threatening with the ball as you are without the ball. You remember earlier this season when they caught Aston Villa off guard with Aston Villa taking corners and Liverpool springing off the back of that. So they look just as comfortable on the ball, off the ball in terms of threatening to score goals. But just in terms of their defensive prowess, I've mentioned before many times, Van Dijk right now is at the peak of his powers. He dealt with Erling Haaland, who had a difficult game. He's not getting much quality service. He's a player who still relies on service. He's your quintessential number nine. But he dealt with him fairly comfortably. But Liverpool, yeah, on the whole, amazing football, great energy. Did I learn anything new about Liverpool? Probably only aside from the fact that this is a team clearly growing in a lot of confidence now. They felt comfortable on the pitch. They were the oppressor in a lot of ways. I've seen Man City play against Liverpool over the years, even against Jurgen Klopp. And the times Man City have lost, and they've lost a few even heavy ones against Liverpool, I've never felt as though City were not competitive in the game. I've seen City outclass Liverpool on a number of occasions, to be fair, like they have on many teams. And even the defeats they've taken, like I said, I've always felt they're competitive, but maybe it's the Anfield factor, or once there was the Champions League, I believe. But right now, it feels as though Liverpool were the better team. They felt like there was a chasm in difference between the two teams: athleticism, mobility, pace, power, and all the rest of it. So Liverpool well worthy of their win. I thought 2-0 was kind to Man City, if I would be so honest. Just flipping it to the Man City end, Ayub. There's so many issues here, and I think there's nothing more glaring when you go up against a team that's firing on all cylinders to kind of show the gaps and weaknesses in your game. Ayub, I mean, you look at the first goal. As much as the pass is good, you've got to do more to stop that ball getting into it. Salah's gonna whip that with his left foot. Yeah, Akanji, who's another player who's suffering a little bit at the moment, He's got to block that out. When he's on his game, he knows where that's going. He's going to hook it around. You've got to get a block on that. Players standing, Gakpo running in. Again, gives you a little bit of psyche into the mentality of the players. Liverpool felt that they could score a goal at every opportunity. Man City were holding on for dear life, but Liverpool full of confidence. Man City, on the other hand, in the first half, they were really struggling until maybe that 25th minute mark when they started to get a few more passes up the field. But if you're going to take a midfielder, you with Rico Lewis, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva in the middle. You got Nunes. That's not scaring anyone.
Mm,
Bernardo Silva is a wonderful footballer, but he's not your battler who's going to get overpowered in the middle of the park. He made so many errors, I thought, on Sunday as well. So, look, it's a team bereft of many ideas, much athleticism right now. Um, I mentioned the De Bruyne thing. I know Gary never started talking about it this week, but if you remember, I mentioned it a few weeks ago. He was on the bench on the 2nd of October. It's now 2nd of November, I should say. It's now a month on with an international break in between, and he still hasn't started a game for Man City. Now, you tell me if there's not something going on right there, whether it's the Saudi Arabia links, whether it's Guardiola's way of saying, well, we know you're leaving end of summer, so I might as well start building with that. Yeah, whatever that looks like, I also think it's because he's not physically fit enough. Whether or not he's not pushing himself in off season, as in the training ground, maybe he's thinking, I might as well keep myself fit to secure this big payday that he's perhaps eyeing up in the summer. Something's not right, Ayub. That's not a player.
mm,
Now he's a champion player. He's been the best midfielder of his generation in the Premier League. But clearly, right now, I don't see, even without knowing all the facts, I don't see a player hungry enough to say, "I'm gonna dig my team out and I'm gonna get myself fit, sharp, and firing." He looks like a player who's pouting and is thinking, I want it to go in the summer. Maybe Man City blocked it and said, you can go next summer. And this is his way of pouting. How can you? If you can't be a month out without any story of a setback or anything like that and still not be starting games for your club, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. You expect some sort of phased approach, but by the third game, you're starting.
mm.
So it's shocking Jack Grealish hasn't scored a goal for Man City in 2024. Let that kind of digest a little bit. Kyle Walker's suffering, Akanji's suffering. They're not the players that he wants were. Foden's having a bit of a lost season. He's your PFA Player of the Year. Allen's obviously relying on service. He keeps the two wingers on the bench. They came on. They started to look a bit more lively, which makes you
Mm.
think, why didn't you start off like that? Look, at the moment, Man City are struggling. I think their biggest issue is that they lack athleticism and they lack the power to kind of beat teams. And I always say this: if you start to lose that aura, that's going to be half the battle. And I think that's the aura that they're going to start to recover. It's got to the point where you've got Nottingham Forest at home next. Now, do I think Man City will win? I do. You'd have to start thinking they're going to win again at
Mm.
some point. But would you be shocked or surprised if Forest did grab something just by staying in the game? You wouldn't. You absolutely would not be totally shocked. And Nuno's the kind of manager who can set his team out to play it away from home. Man City have got a whole array of questions. I'll let you speak a little bit about Guardiola on the sidelines and what have you, having a little bit of fun with the Liverpool fans. But Liverpool, on the whole, well deserved, outright favourites for the Premier League title. There's no two ways about it. I think that the victory and the style of victory symbolized that or encapsulated that. But on the Man City part, I do think this is the moment when things shifted to the point where it's not a case of that they won't win again, Ayub. They may well win again, I do believe it's going to be a very different iteration of a Man City team. He's built probably two teams in his time there at Man City. It's going to take a third team, in my opinion, to be dominant once again. Will they be competitive again? I would think so. Will they be dominant? Time will tell. But I for sure have my doubts, not just because of their failures, but also because the others are also progressing in a positive direction.
It was a real statement victory, wasn't it? It was just a real dominant performance, and they just didn't have any answers, Man City. Absolutely no answers. But I'll just pick up on your point about De Bruyne. I'm absolutely in agreement with you. There's something not right because if ever there was a game where he really needed to start, I mean, I would have started with Grealish as well, just for experience, because I think whatever's happened over the last few games, it's not worked. So it needed something different. So maybe a little bit of experience. And I still don't see any difference in terms of the way that uh, Guardiola set it up. This is where I want him to show me that he's a great coach, that he's trying to navigate a difficult period of time. But De Bruyne should be starting. He has to be starting. if there's something not right, don't put him on the bench. There's no point. I can't see. I can never understand that. If there is something wrong about a player, you don't put him in the squad. What is the point of having him in the squad and then bringing him on? If there's something wrong at the start of the game, there's something wrong when he comes on minute 70, minute 75. So I can't see that. So what's your thoughts on that? So if there is something wrong, what on earth is he doing on the bench?
Just very quickly, because I want you to talk about Liverpool as well. I mean, look, I disagree with you in the sense that I don't think he should have started because I don't think he's physically fit enough to start. And what I mean by physically fit enough, I don't mean in terms of he's still carrying something. I think he's genuinely carrying a few extra pounds, and he does not look like as mobile and as sharp as we've seen him before. Now, look, he's advancing in years. I do expect the athleticism to wane somewhat. But then you look at a Salah, maybe different types of players, body types are different, and all the rest of it. I just expect my champion player, if he goes down and you get him back in early November, for you to start building up his fitness. I saw it very early on because it wasn't a build up. It was as though he came on. Firstly, he was on the bench. He didn't get called upon at all. Then he got 4 minutes plus injury time. Then he got 16 minutes. Then you have an international break. He starts on the bench and gets another 16 minutes. Where's the ramping up? So clearly, he's not physically able to kind of play enough games. And you're a month on during the most difficult month of your tenure, and the one player who kind of is the constant, the one constant during your reign there in terms of us being your absolute best player, consistently delivering time and time and time again. The one player that you probably want to rely upon when the going gets tough to say, dig me out of this. And he's not, in my opinion, fighting hard enough to be fit and firing for your team. Tells you a lot about perhaps what's happened to that relationship and be where the player's mindset is right now. Again, I've not heard anything about a setback. All I see is a player who keeps being put on the bench, and then when he comes on, looks a yard short. That's what I've seen. That's what my eyes are telling me. So I have to put a lot of this on the player's feet. Champion player, world class footballer, one of the best midfielders that I've ever seen grace the Premier League. But right now, in my opinion, he's letting his club down because he's not clearly. I mean, De Bruyne, he puts him. It's not Guardiola who puts his name on the team sheet. He puts his own name. He's a guaranteed starter. Simple as. So the fact that he's not tells me, and again, my eyes are telling me he does not look sharp. He does not look fit. He doesn't look like he's got the same running capabilities as he had previously, that extra burst. He was never the quickest, but he always had that burst sufficient enough to give himself a yard, and then the right foot or the left foot will do the rest of the damage. Right now, he's well short, and that tells me there's a bit of a disconnect between what Man City need and what perhaps the player's mindset is right now in terms of do I really need to be fighting? I mean, we've won everything there is to win. Maybe he wanted to leave in the summer and he wasn't allowed. I'm not sure. I can only speculate. But clearly there's an issue. Nobody's telling me there isn't one. There's 100% an issue there.
But that's where I maybe sort of disagree with you. When you're laying it at the player's feet, and obviously the player has to take responsibility, but the coach, if he sees KDB as an essential cog in the Man City wheel, and he is, and you're absolutely right. When City have been dominant over the last few years, KDB has been magnificent. He's been the engine. He's been the catalyst when things are not going quite their way. He is the catalyst. So surely Guardiola understands that, realizes that, and if he's a great coach and this wonderful coach, because a coach is not just a tactician, but he's a man manager as
But
well.
he
So
can't.
surely he's failing on the man management element then.
Fair, but he's always been of the point that, look, he may well be thinking, yeah, look, we've got to be careful about putting everything at the coach's door. The player has to take 100% ownership of his condition. And yes, it's up to it's up to the manager as part of his man management skills to get that out of him, to make sure that things never slide to the point where somebody could be, and I don't want to say unprofessional, but I genuinely think that that is what's happening right here. Because again, in all the games I've seen him, he looks like he's carrying a few extra pounds. So how's the player going to? How's the manager responsible for that? Again, yes, you could argue that a manager has to take some culpability because if you're running a tight ship, things never get to that point. Fair point taken. But I think for this, you have to put it at the player's door. It's up to the player to say, "You're not leaving me out." That famous Roy Keane comment. You're not leaving me out. I've got to play week in, week out. Right now, that's not the case. Look, we've spoken about Man City a little bit. We know you're a huge proponent of Liverpool. And look, so am I. I mean, yes, my team's trying to stay in the hunt, but I can see quality. when I see it. I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you think you've said, do you think that's done and dusted? Incredible performance. What about that first 20 minutes though? I thought that was exhilarating in terms of the noise, the atmosphere. You could just imagine what Man City were thinking there, thinking, gosh, this is difficult right now.
Yeah, I mean, and credit to Slot and the players, but the credit to Slot, the reason why is Man City it's a wounded animal at this moment in time. So in a sense, that first 15, 20 minutes is crucial. What you don't want to do is give any ascendancy to Man City. And Slot's probably said that right, we are at it from minute one. Let's not give any hope to Man City because at the moment, if we if we just sort of start gently, maybe it gives City an opportunity to get into the game. So I think that's wonderful management,
Yeah.
wonderful coaching
Yeah.
because it seemed intentional that was the intent. The players, whatever the tactics Slot gave his players, they performed them to a T. Every player was at their optimum. And you talked about Van Dijk. He was a colossus. He was magnificent, but so were the rest of them. I mean, we criticised. I've certainly criticised Robertson as well, who again surprised me because I thought he probably would be one of the weak links, but he was magnificent. Now you can argue that City never really tested him, but he was magnificent. What I enjoyed about the Liverpool performance, they were absolutely at it. They wanted to make a statement. They knew that this was a wounded animal, so it was they went for the jugular right from the get-go. And when you do play or when you're dominant, you need to score a goal, which they did. Uh, they missed a couple of opportunities. Salah missed a glorious opportunity, but there was only one out. It felt always that there was only going to be one winner, and that was Liverpool. I was so impressed. And you talked about it as well, that it was very methodical. They pressed when they had to, they sat up when they had to, they broke brilliantly. They're a wonderful side when they break. Uh, Trent Arnold played, you said it, he played some magnificent balls, and nobody else could play passes the way that Trent Arnold did. That was a performance which was showing the rest of the league that this is a team. If you beat Liverpool, you're going to have to really be on your A game and then some to beat this team. Outstanding, outstanding. Huge kudos to Slot. I think he's been wonderful. I think he had huge shoes to follow, and it's been without sweat. He's just sort of. I look at him on the sidelines, and it looks as if he's been there for years. And that's the biggest accolade I can give to Slot, that you don't think of Klopp at all. You just sort of think, yes, this is his team, even though most of the players of these are Klopp's players, but he feels as if he's just added a different dimension.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Sorry, just to cut you off there. Something you said definitely rung true there. We speak often about your managers, and you often think when you watch a team play, do they represent? Can you understand what the manager's doing? If you can't, then you think to yourself, "What is the manager worth his salt?" But when you watch Liverpool, there was somebody, I think I read it on BBC or one of the articles, where it's kind of the combination of the heavy metal football that Jurgen Klopp symbolized and was known for, his mantra at Liverpool, with these kind of perfect symphonies that Slot seems to be. And it's a combination of both. It's not eradicating one and kind of focusing on the other, or totally different style. And he spoke about this during his first interviews, that look, the foundation is set. It's just about a few tweaks. There wasn't a lot wrong with Liverpool last year. They were in the title race till the very end, up until the last 6 or 7 games. What Slots brought is an understanding in game that, yes, the heavy metal stuff needs to stay because that still gives us our best chance to win and overpower and overwhelm teams. But we need some level of sophistication in the game where, if we've given them a few punches, if we've won a few rounds early on, there's some rounds we can just coast. Let's not lose the game, but we can just coast, take it easy, to use a boxing analogy. But that's what you see when you watch Liverpool. You saw that they've played various different styles, even within the Man City game. There's times when they knock it around. There's times when they spring in behind. You saw the number of long balls that they played. Clearly, that was a sign, especially over the head of Ake. Once they isolated Salah 1 against 1 with Ake. And again, it's smart that they're playing longer balls. Why is that so smart? You think about Man City, look how they set up. You've got Rico Lewis on the right hand side, you've got Nunes on the left hand side. Now, I think he's not gone with Doku or Grealish or Savinho to start off with to say, look, guys, we need you two to protect the back to Rico Lewis is pretty much a defender by trade, or at least mindset. And Nunes, I think there was a statistic that I read or heard that he's got the highest number of tackles or blocks in the Man City squad. So he's probably thinking, double up, let's make sure the wingers don't get any joy. So what do Liverpool do? Instead of building methodically through where the gaps between right wingers, left wingers, and their respective fullbacks is going to be tighter, they play longer balls over the top, which means that it's more difficult for those right wingers, left wingers to close the gap because the game's a bit more stretched when you play longer balls. I mean, there was one ball that Trent Alexander-Arnold played straight over Nathan Ake's head. I still don't know how he did it. In terms of the arc, the trajectory was quite low as well. Yet he's put it on an absolute 6 months. I think Nathan Ake just about got back. But I mean, this is magical stuff. It was obviously on Arnold's ball because he went to the left-hand side of midfield to pick it up, I think, for the first goal. Beautiful ball into oceans of space. And again, that's the kind of position you want Salah in. Space, gap between him and his defender, and then the ability to penetrate into the penalty box where the defender can't do much. So that's a situation Liverpool win with and are happy to bet on. So yeah, fantastic football from Liverpool. But couldn't pick a player who played poorly. Everybody played their part. Subs
Mm.
played their part. They looked a proper team. Two clean sheets against Real Madrid and Man City. I've said before that I think they will fancy it for the Champions League as well. Yes, it's a long way away, but they won't see any team out in Europe right now that they will feel inferior to. So a lot of kudos to the manager. You've obviously said that, in your opinion, the Premier League title's done and dusted, but that's why we call it a competition, and you've still got to compete and play and play the game. So, look, amazing. Liverpool, well deserved, prohibitive favourites for the Premier League title, deservedly so. Man City with a lot of work to do.
Absolutely, I agree. And it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks to sort of see how it pans out for City. Liverpool as well. I mean, I'm sort of waxing lyrical, but they've got a tough game tomorrow against Newcastle. But I just sort of the way that this team is in sync, the way that Slot's been able to transmit his messages, and the way that even I mean, you talked about KDB just briefly before we go on to our next subject. You talked about KDB scramble brain, not quite happening. You've got Mo Salah, slightly different situation. Mo Salah obviously is making some noise that something Liverpool are not forthcoming in terms of his contract. But look at the way that he's playing. Now maybe you can turn around and sort of say he's trying to show Liverpool that he's worthy of 2 years, 3 year deal. But this is for me, and I'm going to give Slot some credit because obviously somehow he's saying to Salah that right, do your business on the pitch. Off the pitch, obviously you can have the discussions, you can say what you want, but when you cross that line, you are giving it 100%, and he's doing that. He's absolutely magnificent. So at least that's what my thoughts are.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think there's also some in-game adjustments taking place here. You saw the statistics on Sunday about him doing actually less, I think, running or less intense running. And I think that's by design. That's not him advancing in age. That's Liverpool and Slot style saying, look, if we just keep playing heavy metal football, that puts such a heavy tax in terms of energy and a kind of long, or let's say the long-term view that you have to take for the season. The season's longer, you physically as well as mentally. You're playing big games. They take their toll on you in terms of consistently going. You may be seeing some of the effects of that with some of the Man City squad. But what he's done now for Mo Salah is to say, look, we're not going to play heavy metal football for 97 minutes, game in, game out, every 3 days. What we're going to do is maybe to find some moments where we can rest you. We're going to try and maybe substitute you every now and again, but we're going to play a certain style that's going to maximize the output that you can give us offensively. You're good to us offensively. You're great to us offensively. How can we make sure that your output when we have good attacking situations is at its most optimal? And I think right now, just them managing the games at some point is just giving them a breather. And let's not put too scientific a spin on it. It's just giving some of their more explosive players a breather, in-game breather, as they say. So it's not just sometimes about resting. It's just about how you play the game. It's one of the reasons why I was a little bit disappointed when Arsenal obviously conceded two against West Ham because you think 4-0, half an hour, perfect time to just coast, few substitutions, 60 minutes, happy days. Then the game gets a little nervy and then you've got to approach it a different way. Getting back to Liverpool, I'm with you, I think, on Salah. Look, Liverpool will deal with the situation with Salah, Van Dijk and Arnold as they see fit. There are some rules about contracts being dished out to over 30 year olds. Van Dijk and Salah are answering it in the best possible way.
Mm.
Do your business on the pitch.
Yeah.
That's your best negotiating power, your quality on the pitch and your consistency on the pitch. And I think they'll get it sorted somehow, some way. I don't agree with those that say pay them what they want. That's not how football clubs, that's not how businessmen work. It's about finding the right balance to keep them motivated enough, as well as paying them perhaps what their fair share is on the market, given age, given potential, given their contribution to the club. I think it will get sorted out somehow, some way. But maybe Liverpool are taking the view that keeping those two players keen right now is their best chance of achieving success, not just this season, but perhaps in seasons to come as well.
Well, it's certainly working. Right. Okay. Just before we do a roundup of some of the other games, there's a few issues that always sort of crop up. It's either taking the knee, sort of wearing the poppy, and over the weekend it was the LGBTQ. I think that's what it's known as. A couple of players made a point of not wearing or not subscribing to, I suppose, the common theme of everybody sort of being on board with this. So there was a one Ipswich player, Sam Morsy. There was another player, Guehi as well,
Okay,
who
yeah.
Guehi as well. So, well, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, it sort of it divides opinion. Usually, you get a lot of the fan base, especially when it's the poppy, going sort of getting their knickers in a twist, getting very excited, especially with those, and namely, it's always James McLean. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, should players be entitled to make their own opinion on an issue which they are perfectly entitled to have an opinion? So, what's your thoughts on that? Should there be chastised for objecting to what the Premier League is trying to do?
Yeah, if it's okay for you, Yub, I'll give a little bit of context on this one. News today that Marc Guehi, after the 29th of November to the 5th of December is essentially when I think the Rainbow Laces campaign runs in partnership with, I believe, the Premier League, right? So I think there's back-to-back games and I'm sure there's other initiatives taking place, but there's back-to-back games when captains are given the rainbow armbands to wear. I think there's something happening on big screens. I think in the next Premier League games, i.e., I think these midweek games, and it's all to do with ensuring that there's inclusion and safety within sports participation for the LGBTQ community. Look, so what happened over the weekend? Mark Guehi, who's by his own words a devout Christian, put or pencil or wrote on his armband that I love Jesus. He's spoken about how Christianity is very important to him. The fact that his father's often at church very rarely. He doesn't even know if he'll come to watch the games because he's often at church. So he says Christianity is a big part of his faith. Sam Morsy, the Ipswich town captain, he's a Muslim. But I think he represents Egypt. I think as a nation in terms of football, and he refused to wear it altogether. So two slightly different, let's say, I wouldn't call it penalties, but slightly different events. So the FA or whoever were going to come down hard on Mark Guehi, but I think the final outcome was that they simply reminded him and Crystal Palace of their duties during these couple of games. What that entails, who knows? But clearly they want to be a little bit political about it, not perhaps to come down too hard on it. And similarly with Sam Morsy, actually, they said, look, the fact that he's refused to wear it means that it's we can't get too involved. It's for the clubs to decide. Now, Ipswich Town, I think, did it both sides, suggesting that look, we're fully behind the whole Rainbow Laces, which I think is backed by an organization called Stonewall. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they will support that in terms of the initiative and what they're trying to achieve. But similarly, each individual player also, they understand. Let's say when there's they decide to impart their own kind of translation and interpretation on the issue, in terms of their own views and rights. So that's a little bit of context about what's happened and why. It's a bit of a story. Look, it's happened previously in other countries as well. I think Idrissa Gueye had a similar situation when he was playing for PSG. He's a Muslim, I believe. The issue that I have is, and look, to Stonewall's credit, they've actually come out and said, look, we don't really have too much of an issue with what the individual players did. It's up to each individual to decide how they best want to support this initiative of making sure that this LGBTQ community is welcome at sports and is not being discriminated against. My challenge is that when you make such a big deal of what is essentially tokenism, I mean, this idea of whether it's taking the need to show that players of all different types of skin tone and what have you, of equal measure, we're going to take a knee. I mean, what does it really mean at a time when there's a lot of conflicts in the world, when people are dying? I've got very little patience for tokenism when there's actual injustice taking place. It's really amazing how this is somehow portrayed, even to the nth degree, a bit like when, I mean, I know what the state of the National Health Service is in the UK. It's nothing to write home about. Yes, the people on the front line are absolute amazing heroes. I've seen it firsthand. But that service isn't something to be proud about yet. When we had those issues, I think, a couple of years ago, and this idea of, cap for the nurse, I'm like, it's just tokenism. How about we actually improve the NHS? How about so going back to, I don't want to get too far off topic, but you get the point. It's this kind of
Mm.
idea that it's a gesture. And suddenly, if you don't participate, you're seen as the odd one out, seen as the one who's perhaps insulting such an initiative. I'm about change, like making actual positive change. Now, just going back to this, look, I agree. Look, irrespective of race, religion, gender, a sport event is a sport event. Nobody should be discriminated against. Everybody can come watch the game of football. Um, they can say what they want, or in your case, swear a lot on Saturday afternoon or whenever it was, but within reason. But I believe in doing change, positive change, but a lot of good positive change is done in silence. We don't need to talk about this tokenism about let's have a couple of games dedicated to the Rainbow campaign, and suddenly all the captains have to wear this. Now, Sam Morsy has come in for a bit more criticism because he's a Muslim now. For those of you who may not know, even in our religion, obviously gambling is illegal. So there's been a lot of things pointed at him on social media saying, well, you've previously warned kids promoting gambling sites and all the rest of it. That surely goes against your beliefs. There's a slight subtle difference, I would say. One is, and I'm not defending Sam Morsy, but I can understand that one is it's an actual kit which is uniform across the entire team. If he was to not wear it, I'm not sure he could play. Now, for sure, he can die on that sword as well. But where he's a captain, it's only the captains who have been asked to wear this armband. And I imagine he would have been happy enough to just to give the captaincy armband to somebody else maybe for the game and say, you take it for this game if that's the case. So I think a slight difference between uh, uh, promoting gambling sites when it's the whole team wearing it. That's your actual kit of choice. It goes way above you as opposed to captains, just captains alone being asked to wear armbands. Look, the issue that I have, like I said, is it's tokenism doesn't really bring about positive change. Yes, you may argue that it brings awareness, but there's other ways to make sure that there's positive conversations had and that each club is doing its absolute best bit to avoid discrimination and what have you. It's the worry that I have is the way it's played often, not just in sporting circles, but it brings about, it manifests itself where you've been behaviors that I think are very unbecoming, especially on social media, which is unfortunately just the way it goes, where you've got this issue where people are often taking sides, looking at things to point to others at. And this is the challenge you have, you when you're asking people to take sides in issues that they perhaps don't have as strong an opinion, to be honest with you. But when you ask people to wear these symbols to promote causes for whatever reasons you have, often commercial, often because you have to position yourselves corporately in a certain way, it puts individuals who should also be respected just to live their lives as they wish in a very difficult position. So that's what the issue is. If you're constantly ramming such causes down people's throats, you're going to then lead to conflict because of whether it's for the religious reasons or there's other causes that lie in direct conflict to the cause that you're trying to push. That's the problem you're going to have. So I don't understand it, truthfully. I think it should be a case of doing good, positive work to make sure everyone's welcome at a sporting event. Let's do that. Yes, some of that is bringing awareness, but then let's bring awareness to a lot of other parties that are often discriminated against. Positive work happens at you quietly. Yes, sometimes doing it in the public way can be done, but I'm 99.9% sure that the origins of what this cause is not done for healthy and moral reasons. And because of that, I can't get with it. And it's going to put individuals in difficult positions, especially those of a strong religious persuasion. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is the Premier League campaign. So they've made their bed, they've got a lie in it. You're going to get individuals who are often going to feel strong enough not to vibe with such causes because you're making it such that you're asking individuals to pick sides. And sometimes that individual is going to pick the side of other strong moral or religious convictions that they have. So, yeah, I'm with the players on this one. No issues whatsoever. That's nothing against the community itself. I just don't really believe truly in the value of the intent and the origins of the push behind such a cause, to be honest.
I think you've been spot on. I think you alluded to the point that it's tokenism. I think you're absolutely right. It really is, and against the backdrop of so many real atrocities, real unbelievably uh, hard to believe that in the 21st century something like I'm gonna use the word genocide is happening, and then everybody's sort of getting overexcited about something as, in my opinion, quite trivial. I think it's quite trivial. I think, and I'm with you. I'm sick and tired of this tokenism. I think players should be allowed to express their own views. So I don't mind if suddenly a player wanted to be. It's like with Colin Kaepernick when he went on his knee. He did it as an individual. It wasn't something that was happening. He did it as an individual, and I am all for that. Where if a player wants to make a statement, by all means do it. Whether people agree or disagree, but I don't believe in this tokenism, this nonsense. I really do believe it's nonsense. It's purely it's a stunt. It's a display. Uh, as to how much sincerity there, who knows? Who knows? But I don't think there's much. And I think against the backdrop of what's really happening in the world, I think it's ridiculous. So I'm with you for a large part of what you're saying. I don't want to see it. I really do not want to see it. And I'm talking about all the tokenism. So even with the Black Lives Matter, which is going on the knee, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, look, and I think back to in America because in the NFL, just in terms of what happened, they had to deal with it in a very sensitive way, and that challenge happened to them over time. All the coaches and the players knelt for the national anthem. I won't go into too much into the specifics. In the NBA, because of the fact that a lot of the basketball players, the predominant basketball players, are predominantly African American. In the NBA, they probably get a lot. They get away with a lot more in terms of being vocal, let's say, about such issues and what have you. In football, the again in the Premier League, when we speak about this, it's just a little bit. It's too. Um, what can I say? It's the challenge I have is what determines whether a cause is noble or not. I mean, like for example, I think there's some rules about having something that you know talks about religion or anything like this, but this kind of armband. I mean, when you put it into the grand scheme of things, and you talk about what's happening again in the world right now with people losing their lives in very senseless fashion. You think maybe perhaps we need to fight about that. I'm not saying this cause, well, I am saying this cause in a sense. So if you compare, but I'm just saying it has to be done in an inclusive way, not so much in a way that's going to single out people. And it's done in a way that's not well thought of or well thought out. It's just let's tick this box. Let's do it for a couple of games. Is it really working hard to bring about, again, equality and inclusion at all sports events for all types of people? Because sport is for all. That's the way it should be always. Doesn't matter about race, gender, religion, whatever it is. That you often hear about players talking about that in a dressing room. That's a great thing about a dressing room. You got different nationalities, different religions, and all the rest of it. Yeah, I find it a little bit distasteful because there's no real sincerity behind the cause, or at least being pushed. So the fact that a couple of players have had to object to it is more power to them. Whether or not they have other issues, like I said, Sam Morsy's been asked to clarify his position on betting gambling. Again, that's the behavior that's going to manifest, unfortunately, online because you're asking people to pick a side. And I don't think it's always necessary to ask people to pick a side. What's necessary is just to have an acceptance that we accept people for who they are. Not necessarily, oh, do you believe in my rights? Do you believe in my values? Do you believe I should get this? Do you believe I should get that? No. Let's just, everyone's different. As long as there's no discrimination going on, we can all just all live happily. But maybe that's my naive outlook on the world.
No, no, no. I think it's absolutely right. So I'm going to treat this topic with the contempt it deserves and move on. Right. We'll just have a quick roundup of some of the maybe sort of major talking points. And I'd like to first talk about Manchester United. Excellent 4-0 victory. United, are they back? Because
Back where?
uh, well, they've had an awful time over the last few years. Really good result. Uh, New coach. So I don't know. Is this the change? Is this the turning over of a new chapter for Manchester United? I know it's early. It's only a couple of games into the new coach's tenure, but I don't know. This just seems to be a feel-good factor with United fans. Uh, Rashford seems to be slightly rejuvenated. He scored a few goals recently. So what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I waxed lyrical after his one sit down interview with Gary Neville that they were back. But no, look, all jokes aside, they've had a couple of good results, haven't they? Midweek in Europe, and then where they came back from behind to win, and then a comfortable victory against Everton. Look, they played some good stuff. Everton was shocking in a lot of ways. I mean, you think about, have a good halftime team talk and hey, let's keep it a bit tidy and, and keep steady, and you concede within the first 35 seconds. I don't think Sean Dyche had taken his seat yet. It's such an easy goal. The second goal, I mean, what's Branthwaite doing? It's really poor. Give United credit. They're definitely playing a bit different in terms of, and it'll take time, won't it, Ayub? I said I won't judge him positively or negatively early on. I think these are winnable games. Two home games in Europe. You're playing against an Everton team that's struggling big time, and they put them to the sword. Rashford does look a little bit different. Obviously, a good first goal. I thought, yeah, control that half volley on the from the corner well, and then great run and finish. And Diallo's probably, I mean, a lot of United fans were pretty frustrated with Eric Ten Hag's use of him, but he looks a gem. He really does. I think he looks a proper player. I think he should go from strength to strength. But look, time will tell. They've obviously got another big game tomorrow against Arsenal, a resurgent Arsenal, although they've got, again, one or two more injuries. But let's see how they cope with that. I do think for the long term, yes, it is the right decision. I do like this manager. I think over time, once he's able to bring about his own players and put his own stamp on things, and perhaps get a preseason with some of his troops where he can really start to nail down some of the kind of technical and tactical things he wants from the team, I think they will just be fine. They'll probably look at what's happening at the top of the table and think, maybe with a few positive results, we can put ourselves in amongst that conversation. I don't think they're there just yet. They can go a long way towards doing that if they pick up a big win at the Emirates tomorrow night. So let's see. I think early signs are relatively promising, but nothing out of the ordinary. They probably should have just lost against Ipswich and then they've had a couple of wins. So let's see. Again, I'm not going to judge good or bad too soon, too quickly, but it's a good resounding victory, but one you'd expect them to get, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game because I think it can't say it's a litmus test because it's still so early. But I've got a feeling they might just get a result. I don't think they'll win, but I think they might just pull off a draw, which will be excellent for Liverpool if Liverpool do get the victory against Newcastle. Because I think at the moment the only serious contenders really for the title will be probably Arsenal. I mean, they've got a lot of catching up to
Hang on,
do.
hang on. I tell you, listen, more might have something to say about that. I don't know what your thoughts are on Chelsea, but come on, play the game.
No, not Chelsea. I did when we sort of talked about who do you think is going to be part of the top two, top three. I put Chelsea there. I think Chelsea
But you say
are I
everyone's
won't sort of
back.
say yeah, there's about 8 teams finishing in the top three. Yeah, but Chelsea I do. I think Chelsea are uh the new coach has done a terrific job. He has got lots of quality to work with, but he's just getting it absolutely right, picking the right players. The attitude of the players is excellent. Enzo is is proving his worth now. I mean, he's 100 million, but he's proven his worth. He's been exceptional. So I think it's bubbling nicely. I think Liverpool have just got too much of a lead, but it's just going to be interesting over the next few weeks to see how things pan out. But I actually fear for Man City. If you're a Man City fan, I think they're going to finish outside the top four. Uh, we're going to do a little piece maybe in the coming weeks about who we think are going to be top four. So I'll save it for then. But so just a quick one, right? In terms of results, what do you think, Newcastle, Liverpool?
Uh, I have a feeling that Liverpool will take the points. I think Newcastle have been a bit hit and miss. And there's some talk that Isaac may be fit after all. But I just think Liverpool right now, they feel good, they feel confident. It's not as though Newcastle are not conceding chances. They're not at their best, are they? You have that result a couple of games ago, home to West Ham, and then trying to nick a win against Palace, where probably the draw was the fair result. Yeah, look, I just think Liverpool have got too much. It'll be a huge, huge victory for them because they'll think we've navigated Real Madrid, Man City, and Newcastle with 3 wins, which would be pretty amazing. But yeah, I just think Liverpool right now there's an air of superiority in terms of just the dominance with which they're playing, a confidence, and I just think Newcastle are perhaps not defending well enough to prevent this Liverpool team from scoring. So I think Liverpool might just take it. I'm going for a narrow 1-0 win.
Uh, Arsenal and Man United?
Give us your prediction for Liverpool Newcastle. Don't move on too steadily. You're probably going to say what 5-0.
No, 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 no. I think it's not going to be easy. It's a midweek game. It's on the back of a massive game. So obviously they've exerted a lot of energy. Uh, but I think they'll win. I think they'll win, and I think they'll win with a clean sheet. I think the the boys at the back are magnificent. Even I mean, we talked about Kanate, or I talked about Kanate, and was that going to have an impact? Was that going to weaken them? Of course, it weakened them, but I think Gomez was excellent. So right, I think they'll keep a clean sheet. It'll probably be 2-0. I think they're just playing so well at this moment in time. So that's my thoughts. What about your beloved Arsenal
Yeah,
against
look,
a resurgent Man United?
a resurgent Man United. You could argue it's a resurgent Arsenal right now as well. I mean, look, um, my concern is on the team news. I mean, they were missing Partey and Marino at West Ham. Of course, they've got Ben White missing. That's not me crying about injuries, just observing a fact. If they can get, and then Gabriel went off injured because he had a kind of issue from the sporting game, and then he was poleaxed by Fabianski as well in the game, so they took him off at half time. Yeah, I think it comes down to personnel. I think, look, if Arsenal have the team that I think they could put out there, I'm hoping they could just sneak a victory. But I think it will be difficult. I think the result at Anfield they'll have taken note of that for sure. That the gap's still 9. They'll have been hoping that Man City would have got a draw, maybe even a victory, because that's how much respect, or at least I have, for Liverpool. This idea that it's Man City, like I saw on social media a couple of games ago about how it's fine, Liverpool can win, but it's City that need to drop points. And I always think to myself, man, this is very disrespectful towards Liverpool because all my eyes are telling me that they are clearly the best team in the league right now, and they are. So for me, I think a lot of Arsenal fans would have been hoping for a draw, maybe even a City win to some extent, because again, that's the level of respect I have for Liverpool. But yeah, I think my worry would be that because of that slight psychological blow, if we can call it that, uh, a United team that certainly is scoring a few goals. It's only been a few games, but still, I think that's 7 in the last 2. That they may make Arsenal a little bit nervous. So I'm worried that it might just be a score draw, maybe a 2-2 or something, and that really will be problematic if Liverpool pick up a victory at St James's. So yeah, I'm gonna go for a high scoring draw just because I think United away from home might still create a fashion out a few opportunities, perhaps on the counter attack, which would probably suit them. So I'm going to go for 2-2.
Exactly what I was going to go for as well. So I'm going to go for 2-2 as well. And just before we go, Man City. I just want you to predict what Man City score will be against Forest in what I presume now is it's an absolute must win. They have to win.
Yeah, 2-0. They've got to win this game. I mean, they've got to win this game. If they don't win this game and Liverpool win, that definitely is curtains. I think they're probably too short right now anyway in terms of the gap being too wide. But they have to win. I think they have to win for their just for the psychological lift. I mean, can you imagine if they got a draw? Draws are not good enough for them right now in the league. They have to win just to start building some momentum. And ideally, a good win, a comfortable win, a strong win, win with lots of chances, ideally lots of goals. But I think they'll eke out a 2-0 victory at home to Forest. I mean, I have to believe this is going to turn. So yeah, 2-0.
Well, I'm putting down a 3-0. Haaland back on the score sheet. I mean, I was toying with the idea of getting rid of him in my fantasy team, but I'm going to keep him in. I might make him the captain. He might score one of his hat tricks again.
Yeah,
So I think it will be comfortable 3-0.
yeah, who knows? One little, just very quickly, if we can just finish with this in the last couple of minutes. I watched the Wolves Bournemouth game. I always watch those games because it brings our two favorite managers head to head, Gary O'Neill and Anthony Iraola. And look, all jokes aside, look, it was a very, very unusual game. I watched it live, luckily, because in the first 8 minutes there were loads of goals, loads of actions, and what have you. Jose saw, I mean, I do not know what he's doing. The penalties he gave away, plural, and some of the defending Wolves had was shocking. But Iraola at Bournemouth, give him huge amount of credit in terms of the football they've started to play. They're a really good team to watch, and that's a huge credit to him. The players that he's got, but Evan Nilsson up front doing a great job. But just the football that they're playing is fun. They're not necessarily the most tight at the back, let's say, in terms of defensive prowess, but they are a very fun, very creative team to watch. You don't ever think about them now as a team that could get relegated, and that's huge testament to him. And the players that he's been able to bring and the football he's been able to play. Will this be his last season at Bournemouth? Time will tell. But I have to think that some of the other teams might be circling to see if they can perhaps pick him up. I think it suits him. That's the first thing I would say. I think that type of role. I think he's still probably a year or two away from doing a complete job there. But superb football. Yes, a very unusual game. I mean, again, Jose saw some shocking pieces of goalkeeping in that game. I really couldn't believe my eyes. But Bournemouth, to their credit, big wins this year. Arsenal, City, just to name a few. I think they've got Spurs in midweek. So yeah, huge credit to the manager doing a great job, to be honest.
Excellent coach, great coach. He's one of many that turned us down, as did Slot. So what could have been?
What could have
But
been?
on that depressing note, from we ended up with Fark. So on that depressing note, I think we'll call it a day. All right, okay. So as always, a pleasure to speak
Likewise.
with you and hear your thoughts, OS. So we'll probably hook up again on Friday. We could do a little review of the games that have been played midweek and preview of the weekend's fixtures. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, it's probably all gentlemen, but have a nice evening.
Hey, we're all
We'll see
about
you soon.
inclusion. We're all about inclusion as this
Oh
show.
yeah. Okay, everybody. Doesn't matter what inclinations you have. You're always welcome. All right. So have a lovely evening. We'll see you soon. Take care. Stay safe. See you later.